the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Race is the looming issue in American life, what complicates everything. Most of us know what it is to be white or black. It's about biology, right? Skin color, right? In reality, it isn't about either, because the very concept of race, as we use it in the United States, is a social construct, a set of artificial, too neat divisions that break down upon examination and in real life. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. No other force has played such an important role in the American social and political life as race. Racism is the American original sin. For more than 400 years, Americans have tried to categorize people into two big categories we have called race, white and black. That breaks down on both sides of that equation. People from various African societies who were brought to the New World looked different, spoke different languages, worshiped differently. And anybody who knows European history would never call people from France, Germany, Poland, or for goodness sakes, England and Ireland the same. Americans created white and black as categories. 8 days ago, I was invited to a screening of a video that came out of a project over the last 9 months entitled Mourning the Creation of Race Categories. Although the video is amazing and thought-provoking, the project is much larger, involving theater, music, poetry, and art. Sitting with 200 others last Saturday, I instantly knew that this was what I wanted to do for the last Newsmakers show. It is grounded in history, generated by some Northern Kentuckians where I grew up, and it puts students, the future, at the center. With me this morning is Joan Ferrante, who has taught sociology at Northern Kentucky University since 1988. For years, she and Prince Brown taught a course entitled Social Construction of Race in the United States, and ever since Prince, who is now retired, and Joan joined me on Newsmakers 20 years ago or so, my own approach to racial identity has been deeply impacted by their approach. India Heckel is a international studies and theater major at NKU, and Emanuel Pizzazzo, did I get that anyplace close? Okay, close enough, is an IT and theater major and a recent graduate, more importantly. So, Joan, welcome back. India and Emanuel, welcome to Newsmakers. This is a powerful, powerful project that you were involved with. What sort of propelled you towards this project from your teaching perspective?
Well, I think as a professor, there's something that I've always relied on to help me kind of break out of the ivory tower, and that is that I've always asked and listened to what students had to say about their lives and how they were living their lives, what they were doing at work. I just find that it has enriched my teaching beyond anything that I can talk about in this time slot. But I literally woke up one morning and thought, I'm going to issue a call to students in the creative and performing arts to help me think through ways to mourn the creation of racial categories.
Not just sociology students.
Not just sociology students.
Not just history students.
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason is because I've been writing my whole career, and writing has an impact, right, but I needed something else bigger to go along with it.
Yeah. India, what motivated you to want to become involved? Not where you are now. We're going to hear a little bit more about that as time goes on. But what got you interested in even, because you had to apply for this, then get selected. This was not just sign up.
Yeah.
So why?
Well, actually I was asked by another professor, a sociology professor, and she singled me out specifically and said, hey, there's this project that's going on, you should check it out, you should apply. And I guess at that moment, once I looked at the details of the project and how it was centered around race and everything like that, it was just something that I knew that I kind of wasn't comfortable with talking about, and I wasn't comfortable with dealing with that subject. And so it was just really me wanting to get out of that comfort zone and wanting to I went into like, oh, I'm gonna conquer this great feat or something. So that's what it was.
Well, let's
that's
face
why I
it.
applied.
That's a description of, I'd say, the vast majority of Americans. We don't know how to talk.
Right.
And talk effectively, and we're going to do a little bit more about that second part. Emanuel, for you, what intrigued you? What drew you to this?
Well, honestly, when we first were going into it, I had my whole capstone idea to revolve around dance. And it was just me going to go in, record videos, and test out my versatility, see what I could do. And then I lost my mentor halfway through, and it so happened that the class I was in to help our little rejective capstonees invited Dr. Ferrante to come in. And after one session and a few emails, she said, do you mind speaking with me? And so I spoke with her, and she's like, how about completely forgetting what you thought you were going to do, and let's do something that you work with me. And from that day on, and when we started to get into the material, I think we were all really captivated and wanting to see more about it and see how we can.
And is based on what was said, this started out to be basically a 3-month project turned into a 9-month project, right? So the commitment is pretty.
3-week project.
Huh?
3-week
project. Oh, 3 weeks. Oh, I got to dust that one off in a hurry.
Yes.
Oh, and those 3 weeks were no joke. We said, all right, 3 weeks won't be bad. All right, 2 books later, a book that's up and coming. It was fun. We learned a lot.
This all started, or you ask everybody to start by reading a passage, a section from a book entitled The White Slave. And it's a passage that is about both Archie and Thomas, 2 people who were enslaved, and there's an Underground Railroad twist to this. And then the drama department took this. I just want to pull a little bit of what the drama department did about this and show that. This is the title of the book. But let's go on to the...
I started reading. Archie appears white and Thomas appears black. How could this be? I never heard of slaves who appeared white before. As I read, though, I realized that Archie was the son of a slave master and an enslaved woman who appeared almost white.
So this is the story of Thomas and Archie, Underground Railroad element to this. The morning team invited theater students in to really sort of dramatize this, and literally went out into the woods and shot something. And I've got a little bit of that. So let's take a look at this. And so you can see here that the 2 students were asked. And then they explain what it is that they were doing, which I find really interesting. So play the sound.
We were asked to act out a scene in which Thomas and Archie, after being freed by a little girl, were on their way to freedom. At this point, Thomas realizes that his dark skin would bring too much attention and eventually get them caught. And he begs Archie to pass into the white category.
This parting tells us about how the categories of white and black were forged from emotions like pain, loss, and abandonment. And we learned through Archie that membership into the white category is achieved through abandoning one's ties to family, friends, and community in order to pursue opportunity and freedom.
Powerful. The dramatization is powerful, but what those 2 actors have to say is really powerful too. So this idea that there could be a white slave, how is that?
Well, it's I put it with the condition of the mother law, which meant that if a person was enslaved, the children followed the condition of the mother. So the mother could have children with any racially classified male. So oftentimes it was the master, and other times it was not. It can be a man of any racial classification. So Archie takes on the appearance of his father, so he appears white.
So the interesting thing about this is it's from a historical point of view, it's the old principle of one drop of African blood, in theory, makes you black in this society. And I mean, we've just experienced this with our last president, President Obama, whose father was from Africa, his mother was white in American terms, from the United States, but everybody referred to him as black. And yet, I mean, it is this irony that I always, it was like, once I had talked to you 20 years ago, it's like, why do we do this? Was this a new concept for you, that these are constructs, that these aren't sort of grounded in some reality?
It was definitely new, especially when I was going through the essay portion. That's what really drew me into this entire project, was the white slave, because I said this never exists. I mean, this doesn't exist. So I was just confused in how this could be. But going into the laws with the mothers, it made sense for that specific case. But as a whole, for our nation, it was just, I realized how fragile the race concept is, because it's kind of like case by case, but at the same time we have these broad categories for everyone within this country, and so it's just completely fragile and doesn't make sense once you start examining it.
Yeah. And how about for you? What is your sort of ethnic background, family background? Are you Hispanic by background?
So if I circle that little bubble that I see everywhere,
Right.
you know, they have that one box if you're white, black, and then on a separate is either Hispanic and non-Hispanic. So I have to check Hispanic. Both my parents are from Mexico, and that's where their origins lie, and that's where I come from. But I know that the identity portion of this project is something that captivated us all coming in, and we're trying to figure out, I already know who I am. I'm Hispanic. I've circled that bubble all my life. And then you come into Dr. Ferrante's work and you're like, in order to even start the conversation, you need to know who you are, what your background is. And like you said, this social construct, which started off as it's just black and white, is not that simple. It starts to broaden. They try to make it simple, and it's through these laws of following the condition of the mother, or if you're so-and-so, this much Mexican, then you can't own land in America. And all these start to develop what we call these categories that we know today that for some reason we circle, but not really knowing why.
Yeah. And you had how many students in the class about?
We had an 11-member team.
Okay.
That after we picked and selected, and then we invited the 2 actors and then 7 dancers.
And did some of the people who were in there, so sort of 15 or so, whatever it is, struggle with this? I mean, find this difficult to accept, that these categories didn't really mean what they thought they meant, from the students' point of view?
Yeah, we struggled.
Debated?
It was just more so coming to this place of, it's like starting at the root of the shared place and bondage and everything like that. But we definitely struggled with just how to take what we were learning into our everyday lives. So we struggled with just the language for it. We struggled with, just how to, address others and address like our family members and everything like that. And so it was definitely something to where it's not like you just read the textbook and that's it. Because this is your life. This is whatever you are currently identifying as, or whatever it may be.
Well, that's perfect, because it's going to launch us into the second part of the show. So stay right there. You stay tuned. After the break, we will continue to explore this rich topic, focusing on the goal to become color brave.
If a child who's close to me was to ever ask a question about race, which is something that can dominate our lives, that without this workshop and the topics that we have gone over, and without discussing Color Brave, I would have passed on, and I hate to say it, but I would have passed on ignorance. I would have passed on the same lack of understanding that was passed on to me. I would have passed on symbolic weight, and then therefore, my niece, she would have passed on that to her children.
Welcome back. I am joined this morning by 3 members of a 15-member team of faculty and students at Northern Kentucky University who worked for the last 9 months on a sweeping project entitled Mourning the Creation of Race Categories. Professor of Sociology Joan Ferrante led this effort. India, who you just heard from, India Heckel, and Emanuel Picasso. Okay, I got it. My wife's headed for El Salvador for 3 months of language immersion. It's worthless for me. So anyway, welcome back. This color brave, when that was first mentioned at the session last Saturday at the screening, it just jumped out on my ear. Where did it come from? Did you already have that? Were you already working with it? Did it come out of this process?
Well, it came from a woman by the name of Melanie Hobson, and off of a TED Talk.
Okay.
So look her up,
Okay.
and she just says we have to be color brave.
And what does that mean?
Color brave means being brave enough to talk about a race, but also not to talk about race until you're informed. If you go in not understanding how race was created in the United States, I don't think you're ready to have a conversation about race. Race is based on, racial categories are based on pain, loss, and separation. Yeah. And that's what we have to understand.
India, did you take this home to relatives? Did you take it to friends outside the class who weren't going through this experience? How much of a problem, how challenging was it just to talk to people who were close to you to be color brave?
Yeah, well, what I didn't do was bombard people with information. I didn't do that. So like, oh, this is what I know now. So
this is why you were selected for this.
It's more so just, it's more so me just paying attention to the language that's being used and how people are dealing with race, but also just taking the knowledge that I have about the complexities of our history and how we all are suffering through these traumas and everything like that. And it's just, it's kind of like putting pieces of a puzzle together. But it's not bombarding people with information or expecting them like, oh, you should know this because I know it now. So it's just more so, yeah, it's just paying attention to where our language is within society about race.
Emanuel, do you feel better able, better equipped to have those conversations, though, at times with the right people in the right situation?
I surely hope so. It's something that even now that we know so much information, there's so many more stories, there's so many ways that we can attack it and have a good conversation about it. And oftentimes it can be difficult because, like we said, we all have our own stories, we have our own relationship with race, this concept that we've created. And so it's trying to be able to listen with the knowledge that we have and see why people have this certain perception and how we can cater what we've learned to address it appropriately.
Joan, I'm basically out of time, but what are you going to do with all this?
Well, I'd like to have a Mourning the Creation of Racial Categories project where our nation, and maybe, you know,
start here
and hope it takes on nationwide, and that we take time to understand who we are and change our assumptions about who we are.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Congratulations on what you're doing.
Thank you.
I need to say a few things because this is my last. This is my last Newsmakers. After 22 years of never missing a Sunday morning, I have produced and hosted about 1,125 shows, who knows. This has been the most important body of work in my career. Nothing else, not 5 books, dozens of broadcast and non-broadcast documentaries, museum and outdoor exhibitions, and who knows how many consulting jobs I've been, and none of them have been more important. The only thing that has rivaled Newsmakers was the privilege of directing Leadership Cincinnati for 8 years. I have tried to follow certain principles. First, invite a wide range of people. Some, like politicians, business leaders, heads of large not-for-profit institutions, they make the news regularly. Others, like my guest this morning, are people who without Newsmakers probably would never get covered. Second, once I've invited someone on the show, I try to treat them with respect and remember it is always about the guest and the viewers, not about me. Third, I try to ask everyone hard questions. No got-ya questions, no questions designed to foment argument for entertainment's sake. In a report for a news show that runs 90 seconds, I can let viewers know what someone thinks. But because Newsmakers is unedited. I can let viewers see how somebody thinks, literally watch the wheels turn searching for the right words, or watch me make all my mistakes. I have always tried to model what serious conversations among people who approach life with different experiences and different values can look like. That has become increasingly important in the last 10 years as we have retreated into tribal silos. By the way, I like politicians, especially smart ones with principles. Marion Spencer, Bill Seitz, Roxanne Qualls, Dave Mann. It makes no difference to me whether I agree with them or not on a specific issue. As Aristotle wrote 2,400 years ago, you cannot be fully human until you step into the public space. Just by entering the public arena, they win my respect. So why now leave after 22 years with Newsmakers and 36 years with Tall 12, Eyewitness News, and Local 12? The reality is that I came out of an all too short retirement 6 months ago to help at the Freedom Center as they try to bridge to the next president. That institution is more important today than it was when it opened 13 years ago. It deserves my energy and commitment. And I'm getting older, 71, and I don't have the energy I once had. I will still do my column for Cincy Magazine. I have 2 books I want to finish. I have 2 grandchildren for whom I want to be Papa when they need me. I'm not disappearing, but simply have to move on to some undefined new phase of life. Thank you to everyone who has watched Newsmakers, especially regulars. Some people think this show is only appeals to political junkies or highly educated people. I ran into one of my all-time favorite viewers one day as I came out of the downtown Y, and he was headed south on Elm from the drop-in center pushing a grocery cart full of all of his worldly possessions. He stopped to tell me he liked the previous Sunday's show, but then proceeded to tell me what questions he would have asked my guests. That was an important lesson. Never underestimate the intelligence and involvement of people who don't look like you or have your background. For a historian, the goal is to see the world, if only for a split second, through the eyes of someone who lived in a different time and maybe in a different place. I wish we all would lower our voices so that it is possible to listen intently to the concerns and visions of people we live with today. I end this 22-year journey with one more creative expression from NKU students who learn to be color brave so that this can be a better society in the future. Thank you.